5 of those people left the house crying because all their sins now is being called out by date and time, and now I'm the only one left in the house. I said, this won't happen again.
Right.
But I can't stop what I've already started, so I finished it out. But yeah, I told myself from now on, I am not coming by myself. Whenever a team asks me to come and help them, I'm bringing my team. And if the team that I'm coming to help doesn't like that, well, then they can find somebody else. Because I trust my team with a passion. I can look at, during the deliverance, I can look at one of them and they know exactly what I want them to do. Exactly. I don't got to waste the energy to actually stop what I'm doing, tell them what I need to happen, and then start back with the deliverance. Why? Because all my focus is on the client, and every person on my team knows what they need to do. Sometimes there'll be stuff starting to fly around the room, and they got to go secure it. I can't see that, but that's why I got them there.
Right.
Guys, in the chat room, we have a young lady. Her name is Sarah White. She has Shadow Chasers paranormal team out of Milton, Florida, and she put a thing in the chat. And I've been kind of following their team, and they have a Miss Sarah is a great lady. We're going to be doing some investigating together this coming year, but she says the team and I run into demons that disguise themselves as children quite often. Mm-hmm. They do try to gain your trust so they can get closer to their victims. Mm-hmm. They also use children and can possess them to do their bidding.
Yes.
And it's a dangerous situation either way. So they've encountered 7 demons so far in their cases that they have done. Thank goodness it hasn't been in every case that they've done.
Yeah.
And Miss Sarah said that her team never would have left you by yourself.
Yeah. Thank you.
and of course, you know that we wouldn't have left you by yourself.
Exactly. It's whenever you're dealing with these cases and you don't know what little mind games these entities are going to throw at you. And I have had several to where it was come in the form of a child. Because who is not going to open up to a child?
Exactly.
I've got 4 children, and they're my world. And sometimes you just can't help it, but just to open up your arms and just love on a child. But when you're dealing with these cases, I have to actually, when I go into a case, I have to flip my mind switch. And what I mean by that is I've been deployed a few times, and there's been some times where hate to say this, where the children are the bad guys. When you're over there, that's when you have to flip your switch and tell yourself, no, I'm coming home. So same concept in a wholly different manner, though. I love children, but whenever I go into a case, I have to flip that switch so I can remind myself, don't let a child get me into spiritual trouble.
Right.
I've had deliverances where a child's voice will come through the client. No, please don't. No, yes. I like you here, sir. You know what? I'm sorry, but in the name of Jesus Christ, you are leaving now. I've had to do a deliverance like over a child, and that's rough. Mm-hmm. I tell you, because during that one, it made the child start screaming and crying like the child was in pain. I'm like, nope, that's just a ruse. That's just a mental play on my mind. And it is dealing with kids is a very hard thing to do. And
It is.
I really don't wish that on anybody.
Well, no, I agree. But now last year we ran into a case. It was kind of a celebrity case, and the family had been experiencing some issues with musical instruments and things. Like they had a drum set up, and every night they would hear boom on a drum, And so they contacted us, and we went over and we set up a time. We did our initial interview, and while we were there doing our interview, I was walking through the house. They were giving us a guided tour, and a pretty big place. And I stepped up on the bottom step out of their studio going into their house. And it was like right behind me, I heard, I won't say it was a growl, but it was a deep voice.
Yeah.
And I couldn't quite make out what it said. So I turned around. And have you ever, what I seen was not a child. It was small like a child.
Oh, yeah.
But it did not have a child's form.
Mm-hmm.
And it was more like, imagine a child that is 100 years old, increpid, bent over, really dark skinned, and walks with like a limp type thing. That was the whole situation that I was seeing. And it's like it was walking around and around and around. And I asked somebody else that was with me, do you see that? And they're like, no, I don't see anything. So I just kind of chalked it up to maybe, well, wait a minute, maybe I'm hallucinating or something,
Yeah.
So we go on through, we get back, we have initially come back to the investigation. Well, during the investigation, we had certain things to happen. The musical instruments went off.
Yeah.
They had some damage in some previous storms, and they didn't have any power to the house simply because the lines and stuff were down. And these people live out in the boondocks. I mean, I'm talking the back side of Deliverance.
That's right.
So, we're in there, and I have the K2 kind of stuck down in my pocket. And, of course, I didn't have my cell phone. I think I'd left it in the truck or something. But anyway, Teresa pointed out that, and I was down in the studio, Teresa pointed out the K2 was going crazy.
Yeah.
So I said, well, maybe I have it near something. And she says, wait a minute, there's no power to the house. I'm like,
oh.
I had forgot. So I started walking around, and I'd get to one side of the room where they said that they had felt things, seen things, and the snare drum would go off.
Yeah.
Well, had a whole bunch of hits there. I get to a keyboard that belonged to this man's father, where he wrote songs and things like that. Now, mind you, the power is off. When I held the K2 in front of the keys themselves, it lit up. It pegged on red.
Oh, wow.
I went around behind it thinking maybe, okay, the battery had been charged or whatever.
Yeah.
I got nothing.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. And so
that's fascinating.
There were two places that we had to investigate. So I kind of broke the team, and I was still setting up cameras and stuff at the big house. I'll call it the big house. So I sent Teresa and some of the team up to the other house to investigate, and they had no power there either because they were in the same area.
Yeah.
they got absolutely nothing when they were up there. Except,
Wow.
I think Teresa said they had one little hit on the K2 or something. So I'm at this house, okay, and the owner comes in, and I said, okay, we're going to start investigating. We set up in a room, we start talking, and the first thing I do, of course, I always have the EVP recorder going. The first thing we do is a spirit box session. And I start asking questions. And then I said, okay, I want you to ask questions. And he started asking questions, and we started getting responses.
Yeah.
Well, this room, his grandfather was in a hospital bed in this room. His grandfather died in that room. And so I was thinking, okay, well, maybe it's a family member type situation. Really didn't think so. We started back with the spirit box, and he asked a question in the deepest, ugliest, darkest voice you could ever think of. Came through the spirit box and said, "You're going to die."
Ooh.
And this guy looked at me, and we're in the dark, and then he had his eyes open so big that I could see his eyes, and his mouth started open, and the whole room just filled with an energy that it was nauseating.
Yeah.
And it was just totally moving around and going by each person. Teresa walks in the room and immediately has to walk back out. My wife is very, very sensitive, and she's just standing right outside the door looking at me, shaking her head. And I'm like, holy cow, so something really, really evil or something's going on here. So I stopped him from asking questions, and I immediately confronted the entity that was in the room.
Yeah.
And, told him in Jesus' name, you're gonna remove yourself from this house. And it just kind of like it darted from here to there, got in the corner. I could tell it was in a corner right behind the bed that was there. It was just, and even now thinking about it, the hair is standing up on the back of my neck, and heebie-jeebies.
Heebie-jeebies.
And the owner, his sister walks into the room, and his wife, and his sister goes to coughing and struggling.
Uh-oh.
And I told her immediately, go out. Just all y'all go out. Everybody out. And I managed to get this entity. I never could get it to respond to me as far as let me know who you are type thing.
Yeah.
I only asked that a couple of times because honestly speaking, I didn't really want to push the issue.
Yeah.
And because it might tell me something that I don't want to hear. And but I did manage to get it to move. And I told my team members, go open the front door.
Yeah.
And he opened the front door, and I ordered it out of the house. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, honestly speaking, I don't think the thing left the house, but I think that we got it to kind of quieten down and leave us alone.
Yeah.
And I told these, once we completed the investigation, I said, look, I'm going to go and do some research on this data and stuff, and I'll let you know. Well, they ended up moving the day we were supposed to go and do the cleansing.
Isn't that ironic?
And moved to like Colorado or somewhere because he was going to start touring in Colorado and stuff like that. So, the entity in that house was very, very demonic.
Yeah.
And it was coming across to begin with because the client's best friend's name came across the spirit box.
Yeah.
And because whenever I asked, and who you are, it came across to take gave